Welcome back, my friends, to the show which never ends, with an anthropomorphic hen. Come inside, come inside. Come join me and Viv, talk about creatures that live in the darkness of your id. Come inside, come inside. Come inside, believe me folks, it's great. Streaming on the last Wednesday at 8. Come inside, down here as well, you know. We'll take you places you want to go. Come and see the show. The Comedy Rhino. Come and see the show. It's great, you know. They're behind that box. There's been criminal in a box. There's Canadian Dave Scott. Come inside, come inside. Goodness, it's his nibs. The one and only in Squid. Exposing late monster fibs. Come inside, come inside. Come inside. The show's about to start. An insane mix of science, class and art. Come and see the show. It's good, you know. Come and see the show. The last Wednesday show. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the last Wednesday of the month show, in which several people who I said were going to be here are not here, but we do have Vivien, me, David, Ian, and our special guest this week, who's the lovely Carol Scott, who wrote a book which I wanted to publish about the mystery animals of Southern Asia and Oceania. Oceania, I can never remember. But the trouble is, the day that she approached me with the manuscript was the day that my wife's cancer was confirmed as being terminal, and I really couldn't face publishing anything at the time. So I made a polite excuse, and she went on her way. And then I found her on Facebook years later. She sent me a copy of her book, which is jolly good, and I had her on our show, the CFZ on the Track show. And now, then next at the story, I said, well, you live in Canada. Do you know anybody who might take over running CFZ Canada? Because the lady who was running CFZ Canada was seriously ill with a disease from which she's not going to recover. And she said, well, was my dad, Dave? And I said, oh, well, if he's as nice and useful as you are, which he isn't, then I'm sure he'll be brilliant. But there he is. So that's why we've got David there. And this week we have Carol back to talk on the last Wednesday of the month show about her book and about whatever else comes up, really. So welcome, Carol. It's lovely to have you.
Thank you, and it's good to be back, on a CFZ show. So,
well, it's lovely to have you. Now, Vivien, what's happened to you in the last month?
Well, I'm in talks with we're looking at contracts, so I'm going to go professional, and I have a manager. There's a new paranormal team being set up by myself, so that's really exciting. So I'm getting back into doing paranormal research. This is where I sort of am really with paranormal. I've also had a guest appearance on a TV show that's hopefully going to air soon. I'm not allowed to talk about that, but yeah, so first episode I will be on if it goes to air. And that's about it, really. I've been doing some interviews. I've got one this week that's going out in Oregon. So, yes, that's really exciting. I'm making plans for next year with some research a bit further afield as well. So there's lots coming in, lots planned, and I'm hoping to find myself in Alaska next year with Andy. So we will be going to Port Lock. Fingers
Well,
crossed.
that sounds pretty far out, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Ian, what about you? What have you been doing? Anything exciting?
Preparation more than anything. Last week I was on a Fortean podcast on YouTube, discussing, which was called Fortean Words, and I was discussing Japanese toilet ghosts. So that's what I did.
Mm.
Yeah, so that was different. But some writing and preparation for this show as well. I've been trying to contact some guests to have on this for the coming months. So yeah, preparation, really ready for the big explosion in the autumn.
And you, David?
Not much. I've been working on the new season, as you know, and I've just about done a new commercial for CFZ. I've been working on. I've got the music done. I've got the script written. I messed up my studio yesterday when I went to record it, but Carol's seen some of the work. Actually, I think you have too, John. That's pretty much all I'm working on right now, and it's been so bloody hot here. Carol keeps on asking me to go for a hike down to the river, and if she doesn't bring it up at that time, I can ignore it and not do it. So I've been optioning for that. I'll be honest, but I would like to get out tomorrow, Carol. Well, I got you here, and you got witnesses. I'd like to get down to that game trail and maybe put up the cameras on that game trail that we found last time we were out. So we'll go down and take a look and see what we can find.
Sounds good.
Yep.
So, Carol,
Yes.
enough of the people in the cheap seats. How did you get involved with this stuff in the first place?
Yeah, when I was very, very young, my parents and I happened to watch Animal X. I actually believe it was on the way we moved from Canada to the United States. And I think we caught an episode of Animal X, and that just absolutely, I found it so interesting. So it's kind of been somewhat a lifelong passion. So yeah.
And then what brought about your book?
Yeah, something that I've always noticed with cryptozoology is that a lot of the study tends to focus on, in particular, North America and to some extent Europe. There are some cryptids that you'll find that get a bit more traction despite being in other locations, but overwhelmingly, it tends to be, I don't want to say biased, that's not the word, but it tends to favor North American and what I would like to call more accessible creatures. A lot of that is researchers, it's much more difficult to go traveling to other places. It can be harder to find sources, find local connections. So just by virtue of that, a lot of researchers tend to focus on what's in their backyard. And there's also, in particular, on that note, it is somewhat more interesting to think, oh, Bigfoot is outside my backyard, for example. So I think that also contributes to a lot of it. But with the book, what I wanted to do was focus on some of those creatures that don't get a lot of attention, as well as, because there's not as much attention, some of the sources I find are hard to find, or the archives aren't the best on them. So trying to do my best to create something of a reference guide so that people, if they read something and it strikes a nerve with them, they're able to pick up where that research is and continue looking.
So why Oceania?
Yeah. In particular, I think it's just, I think a lot of interesting creatures are from there. My favorite cryptid, and actually my favorite animal, is the thylacine. So it's something that I've always been like, okay, well, I like that particular area and wanted to write about that. I did initially start out with just Oceania, and expanded it to include Asia, as I thought that was a better comprehensive look at the, some of those underrepresented creatures.
Well, Chris, who's watching the show now, who's just commented, he's from Australia. So he knows more about the thylacine, I'm sure, than I do. But we've sent, 4, I think it is now, expeditions to Tasmania looking for it. And I'm not a betting man, it's about the only advice I've never had. But if I was to bet on the mystery animals most likely to be discovered, I think the 2 are both in your area. It's orang pendek and the thylacine. They're the 2 that I think are 99.9% certain to exist and that make perfect zoological sense, and that I think it's only a matter of time before somebody, hopefully one of our expeditions, actually discovers them.
Yeah, definitely. Those are definitely 2 that stood out in terms of you have a long line of evidence for their existence or continued existence. And, they're in areas that aren't necessarily very developed, which helps to give credence to the idea that they could still be hanging around just out of sight.
Well, Sumatra in particular, where the orang pendek is, there are so many animals that have got tiny relic populations, like the Sumatran rhino and the Tapanuli orangutan. It makes perfect sense that if you were going to have a tiny population of something that's hanging on in there that's unknown, that it would be an obvious place for them to exist.
Exactly.
And it's like in hasn't sent any thylacine focus. No, we haven't sent. No, Chris, we haven't sent any thylacine focused expeditions to New Zealand. We haven't sent any expeditions to New Guinea, although our life president, Colonel John Blatchford Snell, did 2 expeditions there in the 1970s. And they were the ones who came back with the stories of the giant monitor lizards. But it's something I very much want us to do. The trouble is, New Guinea is a very dangerous place to go. And in order to go there safely, we're going to have quite a lot of local security people with us, which is something. Who's that?
Me.
Oh, I just saw my logo up and I thought, who the hell's doing that? And it's you. You're just confusing me, Vivien.
An imposter.
Yes, exactly. I thought I was actually thinking it was Richard. And I was thinking, bloody hell, Richard's not only managed to work out how to use StreamYard, which I think is very unlikely, but he's actually managed to work out how to do the chat as well. So if you are there, Richard, woohoo, lovely to have you. So how do you go about collecting the information on the animals which are in your book?
Yeah, a lot of it started out with just collecting a list of cryptids that I wanted to cover. And a lot of the time it came down to checking maybe a reference book, say Cryptozoology A to Z, seeing what's there, and kind of working backwards from that point, seeing what's already there in, I guess, more popular books, and then sometimes tracing the sources back. Irene mentioned the hippogon in chat, and that was an interesting one to research because a lot of the English sources pulled from one out of print book. So I was lucky enough to find that on the Internet Archive and be able to actually directly reference it. But a lot of the cryptids, it would just be so-and-so said, and then I go to so-and-so, and they'd be like X and Y said, and doing a lot of tracing in terms of that and trying to get as correct as possible with what's going on, what the folklore is, any news reports on the cryptids, etc.
Have you
Sorry.
sorry, John. Have you been to that part of the world? Have you spent much time in that part of the world?
I have not, unfortunately. Going
No.
back to kind of, the expenses thing, and one of the things I thought of when John was talking is that sometimes, security, that's an additional cost and an additional worry. I know there's some expeditions that have gone to the Congo, which obviously is a pretty dangerous part of the world. And just getting visas and stuff can be complicated, the local language, etc. So yeah, unfortunately, I haven't been to that area of the world. I would love to go to Tasmania someday in particular. But yeah, so unfortunately, a lot of it was just looking at archives, contacting people, etc.
Well, it's good that you managed to go back and look at the source material, because so often these books just quote each other and nobody looks at the source material. The classic example is if you look in every book that mentions the Cornish Owlman before my book came out in 1998, they all say that there was a strange giant bird apparition on a mountain in Cornwall which severely injured two local boys. Well, if you have to find the original citation, which was in a parish magazine from the 1920s, from a place called Mount Hawke, just outside Camborne, that it was actually two boys were pecked by an injured goose. And it's not anything to do with the owl man, not anything to do with sort of mysterious giants, feathered demons, or anything at all. It was just two boys pecked by a large injured goose.
Sorry, just the mental image of that is very funny.
You're as bad as Vivien, you are. I can see you and Vivien there giggling away at the idea of these two poor boys being lacerated by the beak of an injured goose. Really, women, you're all awful.
But that does remind me, and I'm struggling to remember the chapter offhand, but one of the books, or there was one cryptid in particular where a lot of people were quoting from a book that said that James Cook, the famous explorer, had cited this cryptid. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder where he wrote about that or what have you, or if like a shipmate said that he saw it or something. So I tracked down both versions of this book just in case it was in one but not the other. Neither one said it, but everything about that cryptid quoted that source, and I was like, oh no. So yeah, you do kind of just sometimes have to go back and really check the work, because unfortunately it becomes like a game of telephone, essentially.
And if you don't do it, that's why so many people in both mainstream science and mainstream media think that cryptozoology is a pseudoscience full of idiots, because so much of it is nonsense. And the way I see it, it is our job and the job of all good researchers to try and dispel that nonsense and find the kernel of truth, which usually lies behind all these stories. Dave?
Yes, sir.
It's weird because I know you're looking at your monitor while being filmed on your phone, but it looks like you're gazing out into the middle distance with a gormless look on your face.
Oh, I was just trying to look thoughtful.
Well, you look gorgeous.
Dave, ask Carol that question from Ned.
Okay,
Actually, Carol and I have discussed this, and John and I, but John wanted to ask the question, so I thought I'd leave it for John because I'm a nice guy.
No, you did. But just for a dead Ned, Carol, why do you want to go to Tasmania?
Yeah, like I said, the Tasmanian tiger was just a huge part of getting into cryptozoology, and it's my favorite animal. So I'd like to go there, see the sights, all that. And Ned, I believe I saw in the chat that you're from Australia. I would actually like to see all of Tasmania or all of Australia, but in particular Tasmania.
Can I tell a story about Carol in Hobart, Australia, or Hobart, Tasmania? We
I'm
were
not
at
sure.
we were at the Roswell UFO Museum on. Her mom was doing a seminar somewhere, and Carol and I would tag along and drive all around America. And, we went to the UFO Museum in Roswell, New Mexico. And they had this big, huge world map, and you would stick a pin in where you were from. Carol's standing there, and she sticks in a pin into Hobart, Tasmania. There's a couple behind her, and they go, "Oh, you're from Tasmania." She turned around at about 8 or 9 years old, and without a hesitation, lied to their face that yes, she was.
She might have been in a former life. You don't know.
Oh God!
Maybe in
No.
another life, yes. Okay, yeah, I will give her that. I have to give that to you because of what you do.
So what happened then? What did the people behind you say?
Oh, they just thought it was very cool, and we all went along our way looking at the exhibits. And
Well done, that girl.
so there is a pin in at the UFO Museum in New Mexico that stuck in Hobart, New Zealand. It was or Tasmania that is false.
I'm
Well,
not
hopefully
saying anything.
hopefully in the past 20 years they've had someone actually from Hobart visit
Oh,
and go,
that would be wonderful. Yes,
and they're like, oh, someone else was here.
it must have been Bob.
This might interest you. What Irene has just put up.
Can somebody read that? Because my eyes are complete rubbish at the moment, and I can't get my eyes tested for another fortnight. So someone will have to read it out for me.
We have over 100 cryptid creatures here, and they are called yokai creatures from the water, mountains, rivers, earth, and oceans. That's what Irina says.
Where is Irene from?
Japan.
Japan. That's what I thought.
And Ned Druce on YouTube says you won't find Tasmanian tiger. So that's a bit of a downer from Ned there. But
I mean, I probably won't, but I agree.
what other cryptids then do you cover in your book?
Yeah, so a lot of different hominids. Mentioned the hippogon earlier, but obviously, orang pendek, urine, all that kind of good stuff. And thylacine, yowie, some of the other ones. The one I found most interesting, and I talked about this when I was on the track, was the Netawo from Sri Lanka, which was allegedly a group of small hominids that were actually killed off by a different tribe on the island back in the 1500s, I want to say, allegedly. They were all put into a cave, and then the cave was there, like a fire was put in front of the cave, so then they all perished. And I just found that so interesting. And I think it's also indicative of the problem with researching a lot of the creatures in this area. Was there is a actual Sri Lankan text that deals with these creatures. It is so it hasn't been archived at all digitally. There's only one copy, and according to the researcher I spoke to, it is falling apart. So, and anyone who speaks English would have to have it translated and all that. So you have, this very, very interesting story, but there's not really the urge from anyone to actually archive what is there.
And that was a kind of a smaller type hairy creature, is it? Yeah, that's interesting because I interviewed a Yowie guy a few years ago who witnessed Yowie, and he said they were small like that. You think of a big 7-foot, foot type creature, but no, he was saying the ones he saw were actually very small, 3-foot type. So, and I think some of the British Bigfoot reports are also of a smaller version of this creature. So yes, quite interesting.
I wonder how much it would cost to get your friend, the researcher in Sri Lanka, to go and scan to get them. I wonder how much it would cost in real money.
Yeah, I'm not sure offhand. I do think it is in some special archive currently, as in not like a publicly accessible archive. So it's barely being maintained, but I do believe there is some charge to actually view it. And then a lot of collections of historical artifacts like that, they don't allow scanning, or it's not a priority for the museum or other group. And, that's just the unfortunate thing. So
I think if they were offered enough money, they would do it. Like over
probably.
there, like in most Asian countries, it's like bribery. You have to bribe them to get anything.
Yeah.
So it could be doable if there was some money there to sort of back it up, maybe, but it could cost hundreds. So,
Well, I think it would be very much worth it if, Carol, if you could contact them and try and open up negotiations and see how much it would cost. Because I think that's something that we should raise money between us on. At the moment, CFZ's on 4 continents now, and then I think that's the sort of thing we ought to, between us, try and stump up the readies to be able to get this thing archived.
Yeah, that'd definitely be awesome. So I'll look into that afterwards.
Well, if you would, because there's so many people who call themselves researchers who spend all their time on internet forums arguing with each other whether Bigfoot has got the same sort of technology as the Romulans in Star Trek, so they can appear and disappear at will. Fuck off. That's just nonsense. What we could do, which is something totally positive with no downside, is save this famous one single archive, and if we can save this one document and then make it available publicly for free so everybody can get it. You mentioned the Internet Archive earlier. It's a brilliant resource. The amount of stuff that I've got from there, and there's also an archive which I only discovered recently, which V. McCrinnan told me about, and I'll just tell you what it's called because I didn't know. I'd never heard of it. And it's called Anna's Archive,
Oh, yes.
annas-archive.org. I'd never heard of it, but golly, I've managed to get some absolutely fantastic stuff that I thought I'd never see from there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I guess an important part, just like PSA about archiving, is in addition to stuff like Internet Archive, Anna's Archive, have a backup if at all possible, if it's something of interest to you. The Internet Archive does have a bunch of lawsuits against it that are threatening to take it down. They've had to take down individual files before. So always keep a copy. And in addition, a lot of paranormal and cryptid magazines and stuff, keeping your copies. Like, there are so many things being published, and many of them are great and well researched, but a lot of them end up in the recycle eventually, and end up lost. Not so much nowadays, since generally there is a digital backup. But I was reading the other day about there was some old UFO magazine, and 3 copies just disappeared. Like, it was in publication, and now there's no record of it. So, most likely it ended up in someone's recycle bin in the long term. So being able to keep your own backup is definitely important.
I think as well, if you have archives online, which is great, is one thing, but you've got to be careful sometimes where you're archiving it. And I'll give you an example. The Chinese put up a picture, and I've seen it again. And I managed to get a screenshot before it gets taken down again. They're putting up images of the moon that has structures like buildings on it. And it's not AI. This was put up some time ago. It does the rounds, and the internet then pulls it down. But the problem that we face today with everything is being governed, and secondly, AI. AI is causing more problems with archiving and getting the real stories. And yes, while they are important, we need to remember that they have to go to the right places as well. So guys, if you're thinking of doing it, do your research and contact Harold, contact Jonathan, or even Dave or Ian, and find out the right places that you could store this information. Don't just think that you put it out there and it will be safe forever. It doesn't work like that.
That's I was actually thinking, if we did manage to get that document scanned and translated, it would be a nice cornerstone for starting our own. And then if we put, everybody remembers pirating, right? Software and everything. And they always had servers in different countries. And what we do is we digitally back up everything we do. And we might have one in England, one in Canada. I know when we were, I used to sim race, we were in St. Anne or something was our home base. The Jordan Formula One racing team, who was our main sponsor back then, they were San Lucia or something. It was some obscure country. But if we find places like that where we could put them where they're not, the government's not going to go, well, we're going to take this down on you unless you send us $100,000, and we could go on and like that. But if we have backups in different countries, if somebody did try to strong arm us, the government or something, we could go, fine, we just move it. Yeah. And we have the backups and the ability to do that. We just have to make sure we kept our membership technologically advanced enough that we, when people like Computer Boy and that, age out and they want to retire, that we have somebody to replace them to carry on. Like anything I can gather up now, Carol has access to. If I become more senile old goot than I already am, or pass away, because that'll happen someday. Carol will have access to that. So if John or Ian or Vi or anybody that's in chat go, I want a copy of what Dave said, Carol will at least have a copy of it. But if we get it in 3 or 4 different central locations and back it up like a seed vault and get all this stuff covered, I think Carol and I have discussed this at length. We need to get these more obscure copies out into the mainstream, and researchers need to stop. I don't know if you call it hoarding or something. When you're researching area, fine, dandy, you don't want anybody to know where it is. But when you're done, release it. That's what I did with Area F. John knew where it was, and we released it pretty quick because we kind of figured Area F was a wander, just somebody passing through, and it was just a one-off, and that seems to be what it is. But we released the coordinates for that right away because it was in a really weird spot. But this hoarding, you have so many groups now that if you say, oh, where was this? They get upset. How dare you ask me that? You just want to come in and steal my, we've all been involved with cryptozoology long enough. We all know we're not going to get rich. If you're the guy that discovers Bigfoot or Yowie or the Vietnamese rock ape and bring in the body, you're going to be famous for 5 minutes. Okay, you're not going to retire on it. You're not going to buy yourself a Lamborghini and a castle in New Brunswick. That's why I bought lottery tickets. It's not going to happen. So anybody watching right now, if you bear that in mind, get with a legitimate research group like Chef said, and share, because you'll be with other researchers for one thing, and what they can bring to your table, it's far more worth you not knowing what you're doing or making mistakes. John and Ian and Vivien, you are Vi and V and Richard and all that. We've all been out in the field enough to actually know what works and what doesn't work. Like, you could go out and spend $400,000 on your boat and float around on a dead lake and say there's a lake monster that crawls up its shore one year and it's got flippers the next year, like somebody we know. Or you could actually talk to people, which
we know someone who's got slippers.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you said.
She probably has web feet now too, but that kind of mentality in cryptozoology all over the world is the same. Everybody wants to be a hero. And for people doing AI and fake videos, stop. Because if I catch you doing a fake video, I'm old enough now, I need a place to retire, and jail cell's just as good as an old folks home. I will punch you because I hate that. It drives me crazy that people waste my time. And
here's a question.
I think I've been spouting about this long enough. The people quit sending me stuff. So,
right, Noreen, just once quickly. This is for Carol more than anything. I've been watching something about a creature called Snallygaster. She's never heard of it before.
I've also never heard of it.
You never heard of the Snallygaster?
That does not sound familiar.
It's not. I don't think it's real.
No.
Yeah, but tell us the story.
What is it?
I don't know it that well, but I have heard of it. And I just can't. Hang on, I'll look it up.
I'm going to look it up.
Well, while they're looking it up, Ned had a question that I think got buried, and it was if I had 100% proof of any of the creatures I'm interested in, and the answer is no. even Jonathan said earlier, like there's some creatures, and I agree with him, that are 99.9% sure that I think we will find them. But I don't think, we should be like, yes, that is a definite thing, or, set hopes too high, or just believe everything that comes your way. So yeah, I just wanted to address that because I think it got lost, but I think it's a good question.
Yeah.
I agree totally, Carol. Now, what's that? Somebody read what Chris has said, so I can't read it.
I 100% agree with you. All be famous for 5 minutes statement. Even getting a week of publicity would be a surprise. So that's these people that are not willing to share, or AI. Agree, David. Here one day, gone the next. And Flipper has flippers.
They call her Flipper, Flipper, the queen of the ocean.
Oh God, I remember that show.
Snallygaster is a dubulous flying reptile of Maryland with huge wings, long beak, and sharp claws. And Trump has flippers for feet.
Watch out! We're going to be closed down. They're going to be sending special forces into the studio now to get us.
Can I swear on mine? Trump's got shit for brains, so.
Can I make a statement?
Sure.
For all those Americans out there, no, we are not keeping him in England. After he's finished in Scotland, he's going straight back to where he came from.
However, we do have some empty dungeons in the Tower of London.
We do.
That would be a bad spot.
Carol, and what
Yeah, let's get back to the sense.
Yeah, get back to the book. And what about aquatic cryptids? What do you cover in the book there?
Dad, could you actually read the table of contents to make sure we hit everything? I gave him the copy of the book.
Oh, right.
I got right here.
Yeah, right. Open the table of contents. Find me aquatic creatures.
There's Carol, see?
That is me.
I want to go back to the Nitaweo in a minute.
Okay.
So, because there's something that's very strange, both from a cryptozoological and sort of broadly anthropological. I bet you know what I'm going to say, don't you?
Oh, about the different cave? Yeah.
About the way that they were supposed to be killed, and how that story has turned up in at least 4 different places in the world.
I've heard that story in India.
Well, this was in what used to be Ceylon. By the way, guys.
Oh, you're in the same house.
Yeah.
Yes. No, he crossed the street just really fast. He's slow about everything except for crossing the street.
If you hear dear Vivien saying something that could be described as being disparaging about Asia, she is part Asian. So she's allowed to be disparaging about Asia. And I don't believe.
Hi, Grizz.
Hi, Grizz.
Hi, Chris.
Big on Bigfoot.
Okay, go back. Where were you, David? Have you got your...
Yes, I now have
I took it to Carol.
Oh, hang on. That was you who came in.
That's right. That's what surprised me.
I don't fucking know.
I was jumping screen to screen here. I'm coming to visit you next. No.
Well, you're going to come down the chimney.
That would be awesome. If we could just jump from screen to screen.
Well, like something in Harry Potter. That would be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Now here,
You cover quite a few lake monsters in that book.
Yes, so I'm just trying to grab as many as I can right quick. You know, I don't think I've ever actually held a copy of my own book. I'm kind of looking at it. I'm like, have I ever looked at it published in person? So yeah, the first this isn't necessarily technically it's a sea monster, just not in the conventional like Nessie type. The megalodon, the in China the Lake Tanachi monster. I had another
is
one.
that the
Where is
one
it?
is that the one that's the giant fish or the
Giant
Tianchi?
carp, isn't it?
Yeah,
I thought, yeah, it's supposed to be red. It's supposed to be 7 foot long, 6, 7, 8 foot long red fish.
yeah, the 2 to 3 yeah. 2 to 3 kilometers in distance. No, I don't think that's. Yeah, yeah, I remember this one. Yeah, really, really big fish, kind of Ogopogo like. Yeah, right on the border with Korea. Yeah.
That's always interested me because there is a member of the salmon family called the Hoochin, which is enormous. And I've often wondered if these are slightly exaggerated accounts of a strange colour morph of the Hoochin. And I think if you've got a giant salmon that's bright red, that's one hell of a monster. And I don't care. I'm really happy. If somebody discovers that, that's fantastic.
Do you cover the Hook Island sea monster from Australia?
That sounds familiar, or it might have been cut. I actually think it ended up getting cut just because there wasn't enough there. That might not be true. I wrote it quite a while ago, so anything that got cut, I may not remember the exact reason. But yeah,
That's a giant tadpole, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
We looked at it, didn't we, on CFZ, and a closer inspection of some of the photos, you can actually see handprints around the edge of the monster, where it looks like sand has been used to weigh down some kind of tadpole-looking model or sheet or something. So yeah, but that aside, it's a brilliant photo, fake or not.
And that was actually my first.
The book. We're talking about the book.
Yes, you can.
Idea of being
Ned.
Because I was in Hong
You're on
Kong.
Amazon, are you not, Carol? Your
yes,
book?
it is on Amazon. Although if you can support, I don't know what bookstores are the major ones in Australia. I do always encourage supporting, local businesses if possible. Sometimes even if bookstores don't have it already in the store, and I can't imagine they would have like a million copies of my book. So a lot of them will order it for you at similar prices to Amazon. But yes, it should just be on Amazon as well.
And I put a link to it on Amazon in the show notes. So especially if you're on Facebook or watching it if you're on Facebook or YouTube, scroll down this show note and it's at the bottom. There's a sales link.
Maybe hold it up to the camera as well. Let's have a look at the
what it
looks
like. You got the book
there. There
What's
we go.
it
Look
called?
at that.
I'll write it in there.
Yes, it is The Cryptids of Asia and Oceania, the myths and historical roots of undiscovered creatures.
And it's a bloody good book, which I would have published under any other circumstances.
The Cryptids of, was it Asia?
And Oceania.
How long has it been out then?
It has been out, it was 2023, I want to say.
23? That's not bad.
I have bad,
memory.
It's like I can remember publishing it, I just don't remember. 2022. But
now I tell you, Carol, this I guarantee will happen to you at some point. You'll be reading it to check up on something, and you'll forget that you wrote it, and you'll think, shit, this is really well written. Oh, no. And I have done that on so many occasions. I thought, shit, this guy knows what he's talking about. And then I realized it was me, which is mildly embarrassing. But the Hook Island sea monster, I was at Sunday lunch with my parents in Hong Kong in 1967, and we had the radio on, and over the radio came the story. There was a story about how this sea monster had been photographed 3 or 4 years before in Australia. It was the first time I had any inkling that some people believe that monsters still existed. I didn't see the picture, I didn't see the photo until many years later, but I heard the story on the Hong Kong Army radio network, which is totally by the by. Carol, while I remember, because my memory is far worse than yours, I can remember shit I did 35 years ago, but if you ask me what I did earlier this afternoon, apart from the fact I was talking to your dad, I can't remember any of it. The Nitaweo, how do you pronounce it?
I think it's Nitaweo, yeah.
Yeah,
I've heard a couple different pronunciations, so I'm not sure if that's English speakers trying to pronounce a word from Sri Lanka but yeah, this is kind of a thing.
because the language in Sri Lanka is completely different to mainland Indian languages,
They
isn't
speak
it?
Tamil.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this story about how the whole population was supposedly killed by somebody driving them into a cave and lighting a fire outside the cave, which burnt out all the oxygen in the cave, and they all asphyxiated.
Mhm.
That same story turns up on the island of Flores, where it was supposed to have happened to the creatures that when they found the bones a few years ago, they called hobbits. It's supposed to have happened, I believe, in Canada, certainly in America. And didn't you say you'd heard it in mainland India?
India.
It's like the story is a cultural trope which somehow has spread widely across the world. And I think that's almost as interesting as the idea of there being prehistoric non-human pygmies living in obscure parts of the world. How that story, how the movement of that cultural trope has worked, because I find that totally fascinating.
Yeah, definitely. It's very interesting because you can even see it outside of the cryptozoology realm or even anthropology. Um, when I was writing the book, the first thing that actually came to mind is, and this is very nerdy and off topic, so I apologize. But in Game of Thrones, if you remember Tywin Lannister, what he does is he actually takes out two entire houses by getting them into a cave and then flooding it, which isn't necessarily the same thing as fire, but kills them off entirely. So it's kind of interesting that even in like the modern day, we still have like new versions of that in fiction, not necessarily in myths anymore, but like it is still very much a part of culture.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's completely new to me, mainly because I've never watched Game of Thrones or read the books. Um,
But
my
hasn't it
young,
been used
my
in
younger
history?
daughter likes it. But
It's been used in history, not just with the flooding, but setting like traps
Right.
and pushing the enemy into the traps, like the pit in the floor with all the spikes, and it's very similar. We've had all that through history, but the one with the cave and sealing it up, it wasn't set fire to, but it was sealed up, is the Indian version, and
Right.
so the air ran out and these things died inside there. Yeah. But yeah, it's quite interesting, and it's a historic thing, not just with the crypto side, but in human living history, if you like. I do that because it goes way back. It's quite interesting, I think.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, because Lovelock Cave was giants that lived in the cave, and the natives, which is the same as the Canadian version, they set a big fire. When the smoke came out, they were all waiting outside to ambush them when they tried to escape from the smoke.
Mm.
But they both those stories are giants as opposed to little people. So they're very similar, though.
Yeah. I've got a question for Carol.
Yes.
And this is just your thoughts generally, going back to Oceania, lake and sea monsters. Do you think that us as a civilization could look forward to seeing more of these giants with the warming of the oceans? Do you think we're going to see more in the near future, strange animals that will come to the surface because of what's going on in our oceans?
I have heard that theory of creatures that have certain body temp requirements being able to move up. I'm not as scientifically smart in that area as I'd like to be, but I could definitely see it being a possibility, or even just as we explore more. Obviously, it's not a major priority for a lot of governments currently to explore the oceans, but I would definitely like to see a lot more exploration of our oceans here on Earth, and the land, of course, in certain areas that haven't been fully mapped and explored.
Well, Vivien, my dear, it's happening already. I'll give you the best example I can think of. With the melting of the polar ice caps, the chemistry of the water on the outskirts of the ice, on the fringes of the ice caps, is changing, and a lot of the what are they called? A lot of the mollusks that live at the bottom of the sea are being killed, and therefore walruses, which live off these mollusks, are going further afield to look for their food. And whereas once upon a time you were lucky if you had a walrus in British waters once in 15, 20 years, we're getting 5 or 6 a year now.
Wow.
And I think that's great. I want to see loads of walruses in British waters because I think walruses are totally cool.
I know in certain parts of Russia, the polar bears have now come more inland, and they're now taking over certain towns, and they're becoming a bit of a nuisance. But honestly, you would not take on a polar bear.
No,
I'd rather. No. They're massive and they're dangerous, and they're the monster of the
Mm-hmm.
bears, basically. And yeah,
but they
it's not
are
always a good thing.
They're unutterably cool.
I wouldn't mind sitting on a mint that would
And
talk to me. But yeah.
and in the next issue of Jon's Gonzo magazine, there's a rather amusing cartoon about a polar bear, isn't there, Jon?
Yes, it's very good. It's a
Yes.
very good cartoon
Have to
about
wait for that.
polar bear, which is done by young Mr. Scribs there.
A polar bear is not just for Christmas. Just remember that.
You're all being very
Not a Coke spokesman?
There is a question from the audience, actually. Ned Juice he has asked, Carol, have you got any other books you are going to write or have written, perhaps?
Have not currently written. Dad and I have bounced around the idea of Cryptids of Canada. Unfortunately, currently I'm working on my thesis, so I don't really, unfortunately, have time to fully commit to that. But I would like to do it at some point.
That would be good. a kind of companion to Lauren Coleman's Mysterious America, isn't it? Which is
Yes.
a classic. Yes.
I really liked that first edition of Mysterious America. I wasn't so keen on some of the more subsequent ones because I think I think Mysterious America is absolutely perfect, and that he succumbed to the temptation that so many authors, including me, have to try and tinker with what you've written. And I've discovered over the years that usually the first edition of something is the best. It's a bloody fantastic book, and it's one of the things that influenced me immeasurably. So Mysterious Canada would be a fantastic book.
I was aware of most of what he'd written, but it opened my eyes to Phantom Clowns. I'd never really thought of that before, Mysterious America. But yeah, there's a good section on that in there. So yes, I learned something new.
I like
Here's a good point and things.
Yeah.
William Southey says this is very borderline for what the mind is capable in regards to mythical creatures in meditation and magic. Do you think us as a civilization have sort of woken up, if you like, and we're seeing more through the third eye by way of some of these creatures that we're seeing more and more, or people are seeing more and more of? There's a question. Sea monsters or otherwise, Oceania.
It's a question, but I think I think people have always seen them. The same amount of people have always been interested in them and seen these things. It's just that global communication means that somebody sees something in rural Arkansas, and within 5 minutes, everybody in the world knows about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think about that a lot with regards to, say, the mountain gorillas, because, you know, all the locals of the area were like, yeah, there's just gorillas up in the mountain. But, you know, they weren't posting about it online because the internet didn't exist yet. And it took for, you know, respectable scientists to be like, oh, yeah, you guys were right. To, you know, for now what's a very common and accepted species that is probably one of the first animals that most kids learn about.
I agree, and it's a perfect example of when something is ethno-known before it is accepted by mainstream Western science.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of things like that. And the orang pendek is, I think, the best example of what is likely to be happening, what is happening with that same mechanism now. But last time the boys went to Sumatra, they were in an area where there were no tigers. The Sumatran tiger is getting rarer and rarer due to hunting, habitat loss. But in this area where there were no tigers, and as far as I know, there hadn't been tigers in living memory, there were stories of a ghost tiger with, you'd have to look it up, it's on the blog. I can't remember I can't pronounce the name, and I can't remember what it is, but with a very funny name like Tinky Winky or something. The boys had out their trail cameras looking for orang pendek, and lo and behold, in an area where these ghost tigers were ethno-known, they got a large and very sleek and healthy looking female tiger in an area where tigers hadn't been known in living memory. So that's a great example of something that's ethno-known and mainstream science, in this case, the Save the Tigers Foundation and the Worldwide Fund for Nature, didn't believe they were there.
I think that's another thing with researchers who get the opportunity to go to these countries. try to speak to the locals. Maybe look into how mainstream science does ethnographic studies. Learn from that and take that to areas, especially if you know how to speak the language or you have close connection with a translator. Being able to compile those stories, even if you go and investigate the orang pendek, but you don't find proof of the creature right now. Let's say in 10 years, maybe you now have a background of, yeah, the villagers were always saying this, or people in the town were saying it. And I think that is also very beneficial to be able to hear from the people who are living in that area and not necessarily just scientists or researchers.
I agree. And one of
Can
the things.
Can I just answer a question here from Ned?
Yeah.
Because she's asked this question quite a few times in the chat. When you're out in the field and let's say you see Bigfoot, I'm using Bigfoot as an example, Bigfoot, sea creature, wherever, something flying overhead, something happens very fleeting. For you to get your phone out, put it on the camera or the video, start recording or try and get it lined up so you can get it, the thing's gone. So it's very, very hard to get proof by film or even take a photograph. It's very, very difficult when you're out in the field. And plus you're on rough terrain, lighting might not be very good. So by the time you're fiddling about with your camera trying to make snaps or even a film of it, it is gone. So that's something to bear in mind while people are saying and claiming that they've seen these things, and reputable people, but there is no proof, is because they haven't been able to get that. Out in places like Sumatra and things like that, once a battery is dead, you are not going to be able to recharge it. So you have to bear all of this in mind. And as Carol has just said, speak to the locals and get witness statements. It's quite important to remember that sort of thing, but we're not far off capturing something.
I think along with that is so much adrenaline, like when you see something weird and you're like, hold on, am I actually like seeing something? Like I know like sometimes I'll be out in the woods and I'm like, am I seeing something? But I keep looking and then it's like a stick or something. But if it was something, it would be, halfway to the United States by the time I actually got my phone out.
Yeah, it's like the fear or they say it's fright or flight. So you could run away. It frightens you that much you wouldn't get your camera out. There's a whole myriad of scenarios here. But I just wanted Ned to understand that it's not a question of getting the proof. It's when we get the proof. It's coming, but it might just take a while yet.
And what you do with the proof once you get it.
Exactly. Sorry about that. Carry on with what you were saying.
I can't remember now. You don't expect me to remember what I was saying 2 minutes ago, do you? Yeah.
You need a rewind button.
See, he's done it again. Shut up, Scott. I'm talking to your daughter. I'm talking to the organ grinder, not the monkey.
It's called you a monkey. I'm the monkey here.
No, you're not, my dear. You're my beautiful friend Vivien, who I love dearly.
She said, what if something's seen in your backyard, Carol? Again, it's the same scenario, don't you think? It's your adrenaline and all sorts.
Yeah, I think it depends a lot about like the context. So, someone, even in, let's say, the United States, where a lot of people do have cell phones that have photo capabilities, if, realistically, a Sasquatch type creature would be out more in the boonies. So that genuinely might be a household that does not have smartphones. And still, it doesn't, again, it's kind of situation dependent, but I'm thinking like, something like Bogey Creek, like that story, let's say transport it to the modern day. A lot of that was just weird stuff going on and not necessarily Oh, Bigfoot is standing in my backyard for 30 minutes at a time. A lot of it was just rocks being thrown or something, where even if you do get a video, it's not necessarily
It's a
interesting.
brilliant film, though. I love the film.
It is really good, just from a from a cinematic
I
perspective.
saw it as a child, and it scared the shit out of me when I saw it. It was a great film.
But even something like Loch Ness, if you was to stand on the shore of Loch Ness and you did see something quite genuinely, the time you've got your camera out, try to zoom in, it's gone.
It's gone. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think Ned also brought up the point of they set cameras up everywhere, but they don't really find anything. And I do think that is also something important, is that photos aren't necessarily going to be the end all be all of study. Hair is definitely helpful, or any, like there's a million different physical remains that can be found to help with the scientific study and acceptance. So.
In your book, have you got is there a fly-in cryptid from that part of the world, the equivalent to our owlman, perhaps?
Yes. So there's a lot of flying creatures. Initially, I had separated the book by cryptid type. In the finished book, it's separated by the particular area. But there are quite a bit of flying creatures. I think one of the ones that I think is interesting to talk about is where is it? The roe in, I believe, Indonesia, New Guinea, that kind of area. And that one I find particularly interesting. No, not the roe. That's not the one I'm thinking of. Hold on. But there's a bunch of flying creatures in that kind of part of the world, and I find it very interesting because a lot of that is actually one of the areas where there is quite a bit of funding being done, but it's primarily being done by young Earth creationists that are setting out to prove that, well, if dinosaurs are still around, then that means that the young Earth theory is true, which a bit of a stretch, but so I find it interesting to see how that.
If dinosaurs were still around, it wouldn't prove anything of the sort, would it?
Right. But I find it very interesting because, again, that is one of the cryptids where there is a lot of research and money being poured in, but not necessarily, I think, well researched research, if that makes sense. It's more of trying to fit a goal instead of doing
make a point, rather than discover a new species.
Is this the ropin?
Ropin, that's what it was. Yeah, for some reason I was like, oh, the roe, but then I was like, no, the roe was a very interesting living dinosaur example, but it was literally just one guy writing about it in his book. It's actually kind of funny. I just included it for the laughs, essentially. Yes, the ropin was actually the one I was thinking of.
The Rose, the one, that guy who called himself Cannibal Miller wrote.
Yes, Charles Miller. He wrote Cannibal Caravan. I went on such a rabbit hole trying to figure out who this guy was. And I couldn't actually verify that he ever existed. So he might have just been a pen name for somebody.
From what I remember, I've got both his books. At the moment, most of my books are packed up in cardboard boxes, and they're in my assistant's attic at the moment. So I can't get hold of anything that's not online. But I've got both of his books, and from what I remember, the story is that he met a beautiful young socialite in America, married her, and then took her to some uninhabited island, or what he thought was an uninhabited island off the coast of New Guinea for a honeymoon, and it turned out it was full of cannibals and living dinosaurs, which were like that surrealist game of Exquisite Corpse, because there were bits of different dinosaurs from different eras that he'd just banged together. So you have something that's part of a Diplodocus, part of a Triceratops, and part of something else. And it's all absolutely unbelievable nonsense. It's great fun to read, but it is nonsense.
Yeah, it was definitely. I didn't get a chance to read the full book, and I have the longest like list of books to read I think has ever been seen in human history. So I never got around to reading the full book. But the little bit I read was actually so good and like very, very captivating, but so obviously fake.
That lot there is just the last 3 months' books I've got to read. I have piles of books all around the house that I'm supposed to be working my way through.
William says that story sounds like 1,000 years in BC.
Yeah, much.
Yeah, it's very the Lost World kind of vibe. So I think it was just maybe someone just being like, I'll write this and I'll get published and famous. And
Isn't that the one that's got Raquel Welch in it?
Pardon?
Wearing that furry bikini. And 10 million years BC or something.
Yeah, it's one of those. Yeah.
Which nobody ever remembers for anything apart from the fur bikini. One of the things that I've noticed in my 40 years doing this, and now it's been coming up 60 years doing this for a hobby. I've been doing this since 1968, but that we don't know anywhere near as much as we think we do. It's like when Richard was in one part of Sumatra about 15 years ago, they made contact with this tribe who until very, very recently had been nomadic. And it had only been within the previous 10 years or so that the Indonesian government had built them a village to settle in. And these people had a completely different cosmology to anybody else on the island. But to my knowledge, nobody has ever sat down with them with an interpreter and written down their creation myths, their mythology, their theology, what gods they believed in, what devils they believed in, what they thought about the afterlife. Nobody's ever collected this stuff. And I think that's utterly appalling.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's part of history that will be lost if nobody does it.
Well, it's down to a bunch of weirdos like us to hang on, is that B? No, it's not. It's my stepdaughter. It's down to a bunch of weirdos like us to do it because the people who are supposed to be doing it don't.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to looking at previous ethnographic studies and just taking the best practices from that. And yeah, sometimes, it is just a singular weirdo or group of weirdos with a particular interest being able to do what isn't being done for one reason or another.
What I want to do it's one of my things that I intend to do. Because I'm in a wheelchair, but I can sit down. I can be driven to some remote village with a road, put in my wheelchair, and me and an interpreter and a large amount of the local beer in order no, not for me, to make the people I'm interviewing feel at ease. We go down and sit down. I spend a month with an interpreter talking to them about their belief systems and recording the whole fucking lot and making sure that those records are kept.
Yeah.
Because it's not just, I mean, yes, I believe some things are government cover-ups. I believe that things are deliberately covered up. So I think on the whole, the reason these things aren't done is because people can't be asked.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
it's inertia, and it's our job to battle that. And I saw somebody earlier, I think it was Chris, who, when I said about getting a digital copy of the Nitaweo account from that archive in Sri Lanka and making it available for free, that he was pleased that I said to make it available for free. I think information should be free.
Yeah.
I'm an old anarchist hippie, and when I was 17 or 18, you had records made by a bunch of spiky-haired Herberts who all swore a lot every few words in a record, and on the sleeve it would say "Pay no more than 49 pence." And I believe this. I believe in making stuff available, either free or for a minimal price, which covers your expenses. And that's what it should be all about.
Yeah.
And you'd be
Yeah.
surprised how few people in the business agree with me. They all say, "Oh, John Downes brings cryptozoology into disrepute because he's got long hair and sometimes wears a chicken mask." Well, yes, but I do it for the right reasons. What does Chris say?
He says, one of my recent projects required looking through over $100 worth of physical books just to get somewhat complete data set of sea serpent sightings.
Yeah, and that is the unfortunate thing, is especially with older books that may be out of print, people will charge, on secondhand sites quite a bit. But Chris, I'm personally someone who prefers physical books, but if I could get something for free digitally, I am willing to do that. Besides the Internet Archive and things like Anna's Archive, if you have access to a academic library, a lot of them are actually willing to do interlibrary loans to get you stuff. I got quite a few Bernard Hovelman's books through just my university, and they are not, it's not like it's a very, like, what's the word for it? It's not a STEM first school, so I was still able to get them. So if you do have that option, you may also be able to find some academic articles that you can access through university. If that's an option, I always recommend that if possible.
I've got something which I bet you will be very jealous of. I've got a first edition of On the Track of Unknown Animals, and written in the front page is "To my brother in cryptozoology, best wishes, Bernard."
Ooh, quite nice.
Very nice. I'm very, very proud of that.
And I've got this one. I've got this one. One moment. The Leviathans
Ooh!
by Tim Dinsdale.
That's
I bought online and in the, where is it? On the first page. Look at that.
Nice.
Yes. That was a result, and that was only like, I got that for next to nothing, so that was a turn up.
Oh, yeah, and I guess while we're talking about older books, I also highly recommend anyone who goes to bookstores. A lot of them will have like a paranormal section, or that they'll group in cryptozoology and UFOs, basically anything you can think of. If it is, if you're able to, well worth purchasing, and depending on the copyright situation, uploading them to the Internet Archive if possible. Just if you're able to do that, of course.
One of the things that really annoys me is the way that what are basically books on science, just an obscure branch of science, hi Daniel, are put under mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah.
God, I hate that category. It makes me foam at the mouth with rage.
I've also got this book here.
I got that one.
Yeah, it's not signed though.
That's crap. I wouldn't bother. I really wouldn't bother to read
Is
anything.
yours signed, Viv?
Yeah, mine's signed.
Mine's not.
Well,
I didn't read what was in there though. Most probably something rude.
Well, you mean that stupid old hippie signed it for you? Well, he probably needed money to buy drugs.
I'll tell you something really funny. Don't be too much in a hurry. If a parent or a grandparent hands you down books and they had similar likes and dislikes, you know, whatever they give you, go into the book and read it properly before you give it to the charity shop or put it on your bookshelf like I've done. My mother gave me a book on the Rolling Stones because she knows I like the Rolling Stones. Little did I know that the book somewhere buried in my bookshelves here has been signed by a member of the Rolling Stones, and I know nothing about it. So please, everybody, look at your books.
Which
look
one?
What gets, the pissed one, or that he's always pissed all the time. Ronnie Wood signed it.
Oh, that was nice.
So yeah, just
then again,
whatever the
purists don't think anything after Mick Taylor left doesn't count.
But any book that comes into your hands, whether it be anything to do with the supernatural, cryptid, poetry, Mills and Boon, whatever book that comes your way, please look at it carefully before you either give it to charity or just put it on your bookshelf and forget about it. So it's worth having a little nosy, see what's around. I mean, I've got some of my grandmother's books. She was very into the paranormal. She was a clairvoyant. There was a thing that happened in the house. I won't go into it. It's not this kind of show. But she left the books for me to have. And within those books was a book of poetry that's over 100 years old, that was written by Mary Shelley herself. And it's a first edition. So please just look at the books before you decide, I'm going to give that to charity, I'm going to donate this here. You never know what secrets are in those books. You know, just flick the pages. There might be old letters in there. There's all sorts. That could be a lot of information gleaned from books. So
that's actually another good. Oh, sorry.
You bet. You
okay. That's actually another good point of just if you come into a collection of books or just stuff, even just looking online to seeing if anyone is actually looking for it. If you just search lost media, there's a ton of stuff. And a lot of the stuff that gets found is just, hey, I was going through my mom's VHS collection and I found this obscure episode of whatever, and it, I get in the long run, maybe it's not that important, but you would be able to help preserve art, knowledge. So, if obviously, depending on the situation, maybe you don't want your house full of stuff, but if you have the time, just Googling, going onto Reddit and searching for what you have a copy of, see if anyone's looking for it.
We get given quite a lot of books, quite often. There's various people I know who have left us their libraries and their wills. And there are various people who have, maybe they're downsizing, whatever, have given us their books. And when they are duplicates, I hang on to them. We've got a couple of suitcases full of books up in my loft in my house in Exeter. that are ones they're duplicates of what we've already got. But I send to people. If there are people, if they're kids who haven't got much money, or if they're people from a country where getting a hold of Western books is not an easy thing to do, I send them care packages of books from the CFZ. And that's something to think about doing as well. So, guys, we have got about a minute left. Where did that go? An
Can
hour
we
and a
get
half.
Carol?
Yeah.
We need Carol back on.
I
Oh,
guess.
Well, that goes without saying. I think we should dump her old man and have her on instead.
What do you thinking, Ian?
I think so, yes, and go into more detail about the book as well. It sounds like there's
Yes.
a lot of stuff we've not covered tonight, which would be good to go.
Yes. Yeah, I can definitely actually, prepare for the sea monsters and lake monsters and go into all that.
And the Yowie,
Yes.
because there was a story, wasn't there? Some Boy Scouts who were out camping in the outback and they had an encounter, if I remember rightly.
Was that recently or
maybe the 70s, 60s, 70s,
Okay,
something like that. But it's quite a famous story, so that's
right? Yeah, I was like, is that like the old one or is there a new one? Boy Scouts is getting into trouble.
Yeah, so tales like that are always good to have around the campfire.
I think we should be careful here because the headlines will go all the way around the internet. Ian Scribbs wants stories about Boy Scouts in trouble.
There's no such thing as bad publicity, Ian. Remember that.
Well, that kind of publicity is bad. It's ruined careers, especially recently.
Tell that to my mate Gary Glitter.
I will when I see him. He's got a house just outside of 40 minutes of where I live, apparently.
Is it a jail? Is it a prison?
Well, he's in prison now, isn't he? Yeah. He's in prison now, but he owns this house.
Oh dear.
That's 40 minutes away from where I live.
Well, I'm surprised this hasn't been burnt down.
Yeah, because you've seen what they did, even after he's dead, you've seen what they did to Jimmy Savile's house.
I know. I've been there. I did some of it. So, but I did go there. I did
some of it.
Yeah, I've got some video. I've got some video of it on my channel. So
there's nothing you can say to that.
No, but it's quite a tourist spot though. So these days,
guys, we're gonna have to go. Thank you for watching, Carol. Thank you for being a lovely guest.
Thank you for inviting me on.
It's lovely to have you, my dear, and thank you for telling me I ought to contact your dad all those years ago, because I'm very glad I did. And Dave, forgive me for teasing you all evening. Dave is actually, for the record, a lovely guy and a researcher for whom I have the highest regard. Thank you very much, Vivien. Thank you very much, Ian. And I think it's time to go. Bye-bye, everybody. Now let me see how to do this. Oh, and Vivien's doing that. Yeah. Vivien, remember, I'm going to have to film you doing that at some point.
A double one.
Ooh.
Time to go home. Time to go home from your simply spooky adrenaline ride. Time to go home. Time to go home. Even if you're terrified, goodbye. Time to go home, time to go home. Vivien and her weird friends are all going home. Time to go home, time to go home. Vivien is waving goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.